and then I would just blog about it. And then I would email them a link to the blog, and then I would go to sleep. So then if you do that at scale for 20 years, you will just end up with a really big blog of stuff. So then people will go and Google with Bing for a question, and they'll find your blog, and you can keep sleeping. And if you do that for 20 years at scale, you will eventually become a mid-level blogger that no one knows anything about. And you could make dozens of dollars in Google AdSense, which is great. And then I've got this podcast called Hansel Minutes, because I'm a really bad estimator. And people will ask you, how long is that going to take? It's going to take like how many minutes? Well, it's going to take 30 minutes. Well, is it 30 real minutes or 30 Hansel minutes? And this has been happening every Thursday for 17 years. Why? It's because I want to bring good content to y'all for free? No. It's because if you call a stranger and you say, would you like to have coffee? They will say, I don't know you. If you call a stranger and you say, would you like to come on my podcast? They will come on the podcast. And then all you have to do is publish it, put their headshot up there, and you can hang out with anyone you want to. So I'm like talking to like the CTO of NASA and the person that made Ruby and all these kind of cool people. So that's why I do tech outreach. And what we have here is an illustrious panel of some of my favorite tech outreachers doing stuff, and I want to understand how they do it, why they do it, and what keeps them going. So I'm just going to go based on tabs and hop around a little bit. So Sophie, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit and we'll see your website.
Sure. Hey everyone, my name is Sophie. I am a full-time software engineer in finance, and I started creating content because I'm really big on trying to lower the barrier to entry into tech. So I started putting out free resources, coding tutorials, and then also like fun, relatable content as well. Just so that we can kind of create a great community where we feel comfortable to relate to one another, get questions asked, and all that great stuff.
Yeah, feel free to come in and have a seat if you want to sit, and stand if you don't. It's totally cool. Eden.
Hi everyone, my name is Eden Wilson. I am a full-time high school student, and my blog is Lemonerdy. I am mostly a YouTuber, but I also do Instagram and TikTok and things like that. And my focus is diversifying the field of STEM, encouraging more kids to get into coding. I post block-based coding tutorials on my YouTube channel and just do other influencer type things, being a role model for young girls in STEM and helping them realize their potential in tech.
Awesome, good stuff. Tala.
Hi everyone, my name is Tala. I am a recent graduate of computer science and incoming SWE at Microsoft. And I do content creation on the side, so the reason that I content create, I kind of got into it just posting random videos, and then the tech ones got more popular, and then slowly I transitioned into a tech channel. And for me, I think it's just like, getting that message from like a young woman or a girl who says that, she sees me and she feels like, she can do this thing. I think representation is really important in tech, so that's kind of why I do it, because I think like just that one message is worth like the time put into videos and stuff like that.
Awesome. Great.
Hey, I'm Braid, and I'm a software engineer, and I originally started creating content because I didn't see anybody who looked like me in the world of tech and development, and I wanted to be able to show people that they have a space here if they would like to be here. And yeah, that's basically how it started out. And then once people started saying, oh, now that I see somebody and I have a reference, it just is really heartwarming to be able to be that person to people. I also feel like tech was missing more of a human aspect. There are all kinds of like coding tutorials and more like technical and in-depth content, but I think sometimes we forget that like there's a human aspect to this as well, and that was missing. So I'd like to try to fill that void as well.
Awesome. Val.
Hi, my name is Val. I'm a software engineer, and I also do content creation on the side for similar reasons, but I think the main thing was that people would come up to me and they would be like, oh, you don't look like a software engineer. And I would be like, okay. But then I realized whenever I would look up content, not only did they not look like me, like Latina and a woman, but also I feel like a lot of content wasn't very colorful, very fun, very bright, and I just wanted to showcase that because software engineering can actually be pretty fun. It's not all like a dark background and green text, although it can be.
So disrespectful.
I'm so sorry. But yeah, so I'm just trying to bring a little bit of colorfulness to it, and a lot of people have told me that they really appreciate that because they get to be authentic to themselves while also doing coding and, you know, getting that money.
That's awesome. All right, Lawrence.
Good afternoon, my name is Lawrence Lockhart. I code in Java and I like it, so I'm not sure if my world is as bright as Val's or not. My presence on TikTok has everything to do with trying to counter a lot of the misinformation I ran into when I did career transition 4 years ago. Bad information, paid content that shouldn't be paid, and just leading people in directions they shouldn't go. Like, there's a better way, so try to do a lot
And
of
you
short
are,
content.
if I may, it's okay to say you're an early in career software engineer because this is your
Yes.
second career.
It is my second career, so yeah, 17 years in food and beverage, restaurant, hotel management, all that kind of thing, and then 2 years of a very hard transition, knocking my head against the wall, late nights, early mornings, and then I'm a developer.
Rock on, I love it. Jerry. It's good, Jerry, in the microphone. Thanks for your patience.
Hey everyone, I'm Jerry Chen, or at MisoDope on TikTok. Like and subscribe. Yeah, I'm a full stack engineer. I'm currently working at BCG, Boston Consulting Group. And sorry, what am I doing?
You're introducing yourself.
Oh yes. Oh yeah. So my content, how I started out was basically just motivating people, trying to get them into the tech world because I came from, the tech world, but transitioned to becoming a software engineer. So, but now my content has greatly changed into just like day in the life, working as a programmer, and day in the life, yeah, just like working from home. So,
Yeah, thank you. And last but not least, Inga.
Hi, my name is Inga. I am also a full-time engineering student going to college for my first bachelor's. And the reason why I started making social media content was to make, as a late starter into college at 30 years old, I wanted to make sure that, you know, learning things was much more easier, breaking it down to relatable things like a resistor, explaining it like a faucet, so people could be able to understand and get the knowledge that they needed and make it easier.
Awesome, that's fantastic. So I want to ask a couple of questions. I'm going to bounce them around because I have questions that I personally want to ask, and then we'll have questions from the audience as they come up. I want to start with you, Eden, because if I remember correctly, and I'm going to prompt a story here, you wanted to get into a Python course, and they didn't want you to go into that course because it was like AP or advanced placement, but then you kind of forced yourself into the course anyway, and I want to hear about how that happened.
Yes, so I took AP Computer Science Principles my sophomore year, and that was really easy for me. If you haven't taken it before, AP Computer Science Principles is basically an entry-level AP course, and you learn about things like binary and just like basic computing type things. And I wanted to go into AP Computer Science A, which is usually the highest computer science course that most schools have. But nobody goes from AP Computer Science Principles to A because it's going from entry level to the highest level. But my teacher, she said, you know, it's probably not what you want to do. We only did a couple months of programming, and this course is all programming. And I was like, I don't care. I want to do it. And if those of you who follow my channel or know me, you would know that I'm very stubborn. So of course I didn't take no for an answer. I went to my counselor, I got the approval sheet that I needed from her because I couldn't get it from my teacher. I went into his classroom after school, and I had just seen somebody who was taking the AP Computer Science Principles class get rejected. I saw him walk away with his sheet unsigned, and I didn't care. I still went up to his desk, I asked him for a placement test, and at that point, I had maybe learned like a week's worth of Python. A couple years back, I had just finished learning JavaScript in my previous course, and he said, you can write this in Python, you can write it in whatever. Now, I may or may not have mixed up like 3 different languages writing the thing that he told me to write, because he wanted me to write it on paper, and I was like, I don't know the syntax or anything. So I mixed up a bunch of languages. It looked like it could have worked, so I gave it to him, and he was like, this syntax doesn't work, but I know what you were trying to do, and he let me in. So my resilience, it got me into that class. It has still been very difficult for me, but having the resources that I have in my class and talking to the other girls that are in the class has definitely helped me, and hopefully I'll finish the year out strong, because this is the week before finals, and I'm going to be taking that final next week. So wish me luck.
That's awesome, congratulations. One of the other things that I appreciate about you is that you're a full-time high school student, and you somehow found the time to make a full block programming course for a third party. Like they hired you. When would you do that? Like what time of the day? You have school and you have dinner, you have family. You just wake up in the middle of the night and like film an entire tutorial?
Pretty much. I woke up at about 4 a.m. Like 3 times a week for 2 weeks, and then I would record as many videos as I could on a teleprompter. If you went in my house during those 2 weeks, it was like you would walk in the door and then there's this huge backdrop and a table and a bookshelf, and you had to just ease your way around the tripods and stuff. It was a mess, but I got it done, and I was running on coffee and hopes and dreams for that week, but it ended up working.
Awesome. Concerning that you're drinking coffee, but still very excited. I'm just imagining like your home personal bedroom, and then you turn to the side, and it's like, here's a movie studio that I have built in my personal space.
Basically.
How many of us have movie studios in their space? I've given you a hard time, Sophie, about like what your backdrop is. Are we all just filming this in our homes? Let's hand her the microphone here.
I do film in my office space. I try and like switch it up and like just kind of move what is kind of in screen. But the nice thing is that with your phone, you can kind of make content wherever, as long as you're creating and giving out helpful things. So
If you're working as a full-time software engineer in finance, you don't need to do this. You don't need to like do outreach. Is this a hobby, or is this more than a hobby for you?
I would say it's a hobby, but it becomes more than a hobby and more like a passion, because when I was in my undergrad, I feel like I was so hungry and eager to find representation, and TikTok didn't exist, right? And I think that this is like a similar story for many of us. And so trying to understand and like kind of get that relatability is really important, especially for underrepresented minorities in tech and things of that nature. So it's more of a passion, I'd say. I definitely don't have to do it, but I enjoy it, and it makes it worth it when you have that one person reach out and say, hey, this was helpful, and things of that nature.
That's awesome. This idea of representation mattering, a lot of times we hear about that being gender and age and race and things like that. This is a small thing, and it's not exactly comparable, but I've had people come up after talks and they've seen my medical implants, my blood sugar stuff, and they've said, wow, my kid is diabetic, I didn't know that they could have a job like that. Or I saw your insulin pump, and it's just like, I didn't even think about it. But then like, wow, my kid could have a job like that. And that makes them feel really good. So representation matters, all flavors, both invisible disabilities and outward stuff. And I know that matters a lot to you, Val. Hand her the microphone as well. You had said that you, as a Latina in tech, that was important to you, and being seen also, and your TikTok's kind of goofy and silly, and it's who you are, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like it is goofy and silly, but at the same time, I do have resources, I do have tutorials, I do have ways in which people can learn, but a lot of the time it's my version of what I wish that I could have used in order to learn. Like, I don't want to like make a Java inventory program or anything like that. I want to make like a dress-up game or something like that, because that's actually how I learned how to code. Like, I was 13 and I found out about Flash games, and a lot of these Flash games were like dress-up games and things like that, and I was like, I want to make one myself, like that sounds really cool. So then I started doing that, and then I started making like little RPG games and things like that. So I feel like there's a lot of ways to make things like more accessible and fun, and it doesn't always have to be something that is, I guess, like in many ways like gatekept sometimes, like made to be as difficult as possible, when that doesn't have to be the case.
Yeah. Actually, Inga, you made a thing that was recently cool. Didn't you make some kind of a robot flower?
Yes, I
What was
did.
that about? I don't even know would I find that on your TikTok?
Yeah, that would be on my TikTok.
Okay. I'll go find that in a little bit.
Yeah, so I wanted to basically, I saw this lady, she made a flower and she's gonna put it into, like, it's one of those that you see on Pinterest, and she basically did it on TikTok, and I'm like, it would be really nice, like, have you seen the movie, not Perito, the one with Puss in Boots?
Puss in Boots?
Yeah, Puss in Boots, when like, he goes and smells the little flowers and it opens up, I'm like, it would be really nice if I could have something that could just react to me just coming close to it. So I didn't see any tutorials on how to do that. I had to spend a whole weekend trying to figure it out, and I just did it with a little servo, some string, and then some, I stole my husband's, what do you call it, color stays, and I just used them to put the petals on and figured it out, and it worked.
And that's really awesome, the fact that we're just doing stuff because it's awesome. Like, there should be no other reason. Like, I did goofy stuff in my talk. Why? Why not? Like, I should be able to do it. It doesn't all have to be text boxes over enterprise database. Tala, I know that you do a lot of cool stuff with Adafruit and unboxing and stuff, and you actually sent me a macro keyboard, and I put it together, and you put stuff like that together before. Do people ever question you and be like, why are you making that dumb thing?
Yeah, I think like for me, so I have like computer science, like software engineering background, but then I guess like I don't really know how I got into it, but you know, you'd see TikToks or stuff of like hardware, and I always thought that it was really hard to get into hardware. But then, you know, like I started with the Raspberry Pi, the Pi Pico, like Arduino, the Wilderness Labs Meadow, like all of those little like microcontrollers. And I think something that I'm a big advocate for is like how easy it is to, like, if you're a software engineer or if you're a programmer, to get started with hardware. I feel like it's a misconception that it's like really hard, but so I do videos of like in 1 minute, like how you can make this light blink on this like microcontroller or something like that. So yeah, I don't know if I've answered your
It's
question.
okay. Is that a good thing though, to like be a hardware person and a software person at the same? Like, how important is it? I always wonder, as an older person in tech, like maybe you all just know how to say hello world in JavaScript, but I'm always excited when it's like, and I'm soldering live on my TikTok, and that's like a pretty big layer shift almost.
I think it's just fun, like being able, like I also have a 3D printer, right? So now I feel like I can basically do whatever I want, because I can, like I can buy the hardware, I can 3D print anything that I can't find online, and then I can program the hardware, so like I can just build whatever I want, like that, it feels like a superpower.
I like that. It feels like a superpower.
Yeah.
Jerry, I saw you nodding about that. Does it feel like a superpower to be able to be a digital creator and a software engineer?
Of course. I mean, what a world we live in, right?
What kind of content do you keep on your channels? I noticed that you have a lot of stuff going on. Like some of us are just on Twitter or just on TikTok, but you have the entire suite of miso dope online stuff. Isn't that overwhelming?
Yeah, I mean, you know, cross-posting is a great thing. You know, you make it on one platform, put it on other platforms, and yeah, you know.
And is your content primarily trying to be relatable, or is it primarily trying to be education or informative?
Yeah, I mean, it totally started out as more educational, but then I figured like a lot of tech creators are doing educational content, right, and do it way better than me. So I shifted to just doing, as relatable as possible, day in the life, sort of, you know, working and like doing skits and stuff like that. So
Generationally, I think it's crazy that I'll go and spend 15 years building an audience on Twitter, and then I'll discover, oh, Jerry's got 500,000 followers on TikTok. I should probably do something about that.
yeah, I mean, it was just a combination of good timing. So I started TikTok in COVID, so February like 2020, and I was posting 3 to 5 times a day, every day, for about a year. So I have thousands of videos. And then, I mean, now I've calmed down a lot.
I'm glad that you've calmed down.
Yeah, so.
Everyone over here is feeling, okay, so I guess we're not going on TikTok. Is that necessary? You have a job, right?
Yeah, I have a full-time job. But I mean, I see it, yes, I mean, it's a passion, right? I started on YouTube, it failed horribly. I had no direction, and then TikTok came out, and I was like, wow, holy shit, like TikTok is next level, like #1 app in the whole world, right? So, yeah, I mean, just good timing, and everything just works out.
And so, this is random. Do you ever get like recognized for like a random? You know how TikTok people are always faking like, oh, it's one of my followers. They put this. Do you actually get recognized on the street?
Yeah, I get recognized, you know, once in a while. And like being in the city, like I'm based in New York, so yeah, you bump into a lot of people. Yeah.
You did really?
Yeah.
You're lying.
No, we were at the Microsoft campus, and somebody was like, I watch you on TikTok.
I wonder what it must be like to be a famous tech person. That is crazy.
I know, Scott, tell me, how is it?
Like, didn't I see you? Like, oh, someone was like, oh my God, so many people have been coming up to me at Build and saying like, I taught them C# like when they were a baby, or like whatever. Like, and now I'm 30, and it's like, oh my God, I'm old. Bree, you have made, you have gone out of your way to make yourself available. One of the things that's worth pointing out is that on your website, you also have things like one-on-ones. How often do you talk to like real humans and reach out beyond the TikTok and the YouTube and talk to a person?
Yeah, so when I started them, I was doing them 4 times a week, 3 times a day, and that was a little unsustainable. So I dedicate, at least I try to do 4 or 5 days out of a month where I can just like talk to people who are interested in tech, who want to ask a human being a question before they decide to make a very pivotal decision about their life. Or honestly, sometimes it's just people who are on the journey and it's hard, and sometimes their family and their friends can't relate to the journey that they're on and the difficulty. So a lot of times they just want to vent or be validated in the feeling that like this is hard. Getting a job right now is hard. Landing your first job is hard. Interviews are hard. And just being able to either help or be that lending ear that somebody needs to be like, just keep pushing. It's gonna be okay. We're gonna get through it together. Or even if I can't answer their question, leading them to somebody who can and helping them to build a network.
That's awesome. Lawrence, I want to put you on the spot for a second because I think you're in a really unique position as you are both a newbie and I'll say an elder. We are peers in some sense. What did it feel like to look from the outside in? Like, I guess I'm not technical, and then you grinded, and now you're technical. So you have like busted in, and now what did it feel like looking inside out and now outside in, and being at a conference like Build?
Yeah, Build is huge. Looking outside in, it's intimidating sometimes. Even TikTok, when I first got on TikTok, it was just a bunch of kids dancing. Like, all right, I have no business on here because my wife will ask too many questions. And it was just a long time later that I realized there's actually a tech community on TikTok with a lot of bad information. Maybe I can bring good information to some of the young people and working adults who may not have any exposure to the possibilities of a tech career and just do it in the vehicle where they are, so coming where they are. So TikTok is not necessarily my thing. I know me so dope, but it's about impact. It's not just numbers, it's about impact. And you get those DMs that, yes, I started this boot camp, yes, I got my first job, and it feels great. So the outside in is working out well.
Sometimes when you're starting out in tech, it can be very lonely. Like we go to Build, we do fun things like this, but then sometimes we're just alone at 2 a.m. with a compiler error. If you felt like that before, and has coming to conferences and going to things like Render ATL and different conferences helped you find like an in-person community?
Oh, community is everything. When I started, it was just me in the loft at ungodly hours. Again, I'm working in the restaurant industry, so I was GM. So let's just say I'm working from 8 to 8, come home, eat a very late dinner, spend some sort of time with my family. It's not quality time at all. Then it's my baby and I'm up in the loft all morning long by myself. And I'm in a tiny community. I'm in Oxford, Mississippi, which is not known for tech at all. Don't say anything from Ole Miss because we don't like them. But anyway.
You're in Mississippi right now, like that's your home base.
I am, yeah, I'm a state grad. But the thing is, yeah, it's all about community. So I found a group called Code Connector, which was a meetup group in Memphis, 90 miles away. And they were open to anybody from any background. Just come with an interest in tech, with an interest in learning, with an interest in contributing. So I drove 90 miles one way multiple times and met some great, amazing people like James Quick and Joe Ferguson from the PHP community. They poured into me and helped me make that transition. In fact, that's where I got my first job in tech, was through that community. After 2 years of just, again, banging my head against the wall. So having people pour into me inspired me to do the same thing for other folks.
Yeah. One of the things that I'm hearing also here is a lot of diverse educational backgrounds. I'm curious, and feel free to jump in, whoever wants to answer the question. Like, I've always felt a little bit like an imposter because I went to Portland Community College. But then after like 5 or 10 years, people's like, oh, he kind of probably knows what he's talking about. They stopped asking about my degree. I'm curious if anyone has a non-traditional. Do you know that about me? You have a question? Go ahead.
No,
Give it to Tom.
So I graduated from London, Canada. So it's a school that I feel like a lot of people don't know, but I interned at Microsoft last summer and I'm coming back. So I think, like your school, I think it's what you make of it. Like, it's your experience. Like, you can find those opportunities. Maybe it's harder if you don't have a school that has the good tech connections or anything, but yeah, I think it's your experience is what you make of it. That's the comment.
Your experience is what you make of it. What do you think? Even you're in high school. Are you thinking about I've got to go to MIT? Or are you even worried about college like that?
No, I'm not. I'm not going to MIT. But I would say my education was definitely untraditional in the way that I was homeschooled until 8th grade, and I was always able to go at any pace that I wanted to. So my dad, being the tech nerd that he was one of those that was building computers. He was a total nerd as a child, and that rubbed off on me. That's my whole brand, Lemonerdy. And he would teach me coding in PHP at 5 a.m. And transferring into a classroom environment was very strange for me. I didn't take a computer science class until sophomore year, and I was not used to going at the same pace as other people. Until then, I had just been teaching myself the things that I wanted to learn. I would learn HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. But then going into my AP Computer Science A class, I sort of felt imposter syndrome because so far everything had been really easy for me. And being an influencer for block-based coding, where a lot of little kids look up to you, and I was pretty much definitely proficient in block-based coding. It was easy for me. But I would definitely feel imposter syndrome when I was in AP Computer Science A because when people would ask me about my YouTube channel, I'm like, oh yeah, I make coding tutorials. And they're like, oh, so you must like know all this stuff already. I'm like, no, I don't, but I teach what I know. So I want people, even if I'm only a little bit ahead of them, if I know something and I can help you, I'm gonna help you. So I think my education was definitely untraditional, and I'm really still learning as I go. And as far as college, I know I want to go to an HBCU because, you know, I feel like that's where I'm gonna thrive. Both my parents went to an engineering HBCU, and it went really well for them. So I'm considering, you know, North Carolina A&T or Spelman. But I don't think I need to go the traditional route in terms of tech, because I know that I can learn it anywhere that I want to, and as long as I'm having a comfortable and productive experience in college, that's what really matters.
That's awesome. And HBCU, of course, is a historically black college or university.
Yes.
Do you
I
want to
feel
say
like-
something?
Yeah, I feel like I have an untraditional mix of maybe traditional methods. I went to college for software engineering, and I also did a boot camp. My software engineering program was very, I wouldn't call it experimental, but it was very new. And when you are just starting and you're looking at schools, you don't always know specifically what to look for, and sometimes you don't know what you don't know until you're put in a situation where people are asking you for things and you're like, oh, I didn't know it could do that. Like, I didn't know until I was interviewing that you could have different frameworks in Java, and you should be using them because you're not just gonna be making stuff in the console. So that lack of knowledge led me to need more knowledge, which I got from a boot camp after I graduated from college.
I feel like going to school for me, because every single language and operating system that I learned when I went to school in the late 80s, early 90s doesn't exist anymore. Which means I didn't go to college then to learn those languages, I learned how to learn. Inga, you're in college right now, you're in university now?
Yeah, I'm currently in community college. I also had a very untraditional path. None of my parents went to college, so I'm a first generation. So when I graduated high school, that was 10 years ago, and re-entering and going to college was really difficult because I had to relearn everything from like calculus, and there was these high school kids who already knew Avogadro's number. I'm like, what is that? So I really felt like I had
We
to
use
start.
it all the time in coding. We never use it.
Yeah, so like it was super hard, and like, you know, I couldn't relate to a lot of them, so I just, it was just hard, so yeah.
But you're doing it though.
Yeah, I'm surviving, so yeah.
One of my most favorite things that Inga did was she did a Bob Ross style video, Bob Ross solders. And she taught us all how to solder in the style of like, you know, happy little beads of solder.
Happy little solders,
Happy little
local
solder.
joints.
Little joints. And you have fun with your content, which makes me smile. That's super important. Please.
Oh yeah, I also wanted to share, because I did go to college, like a 4-year CS degree, but I'm an immigrant from Peru. And when I was 13, 14 and I started coding, I just taught myself how to code. And then eventually I would do these little projects, and I just like begged my mom, like, please let me live with your family in Texas. I want to go to the tech industry. She was like, no, you're crazy, you're 14. Like, why are you moving countries without me just to be with my family and go to school there? And I was like, please, please, please. And then eventually I showed her the stuff that I would build, and then like one of my teachers in school, he saw that for like just a science fair, I had like built this whole game, and he like put me aside and he was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're like 14 and you're building this, like you need to pursue this. And then my mom was finally convinced, and she helped me with the whole like visa situation. I got a student visa in order to come to the US. But unfortunately the school that I was in, it was not a very good school. It didn't offer the only AP class that it offered was Spanish, and I mean, I was kind of an expert. So it didn't offer any AP classes at all aside from that, and the math was terrible. It didn't even have like calculus, like it did not have a single calculus class. So it was very difficult for me to get those credentials for college, but I just knew, okay, let me just get like really good grades, and then let me take the SAT, and let me go just to the library every single day after school and just consume that blue SAT book. And then I would just do that, and I mean, I feel like it wasn't enough still, because there were just not enough resources. None of my parents had gone to college in the US. I was basically alone and had made this decision on my own, so I just went to a school that like gave me the most scholarship, which wasn't like a super top tier school, and I was always so full of anxiety for that reason. I was like, you know, I'm not even a US citizen. Like, how am I gonna do this without all of the resources, without, you know, like the citizenship, without the school or whatever? But it ended up being a mix of luck and also putting myself out there a lot. I would work so hard on projects. I would go to conferences. I would network a lot. I would join organizations, have leadership experience. I would just really, really pushed myself a lot until eventually I landed my first internship, and then now I've been a software engineer for 4 years.
That's fantastic. Congratulations. Sophie, she just said something. She brought up the word luck. She acknowledged the existence of luck. And I've always said that luck is being prepared plus an opportunity. I know you have opinions on luck.
Yes, I think that, I don't know, there's like this little reel going around, and Pitbull says, the harder I work, the luckier I get. Has anyone seen that? No? Okay, it's me. So I think that luck is interesting because it comes and goes, but I think in order for you to be lucky, you have to be prepared to take those opportunities when they do arise, right? And so I think all of us have acknowledged that we've done a lot of hard work, and it hasn't been easy, especially in the tech space. We all understand that there will be times where maybe you're not understanding something that's at the same rate as your peers, or you may feel like you don't belong and you feel like an imposter, and it's like just a slurry of all these things. But I think just doing your best to be the most prepared you can be, and going out of your way to ensure that you are learning and adapting and growing is really the key to be prepared for when luck decides to show up for you.
I love that. And I want to also call out that you mentioned being an imposter. I want to make sure that y'all are clear, because you're my new and old friends, that yesterday when I was prepping for the keynote stuff after Panos, I was like, I shouldn't be here, I'm totally gonna be dead, I don't deserve to do this, and we're ruining everything. And then you do the thing, and you're like, I'm so good at my job. And that will last for about 3 days. And then like next Monday, I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna be fired. I suck. Isn't that just like the experience, Lawrence? Have you felt like that in moving through tech? Do you have any sense of being an imposter in this?
Oh, right now, yeah. I see you shaking. If I can just riff on Sophie's comment, because I can totally relate to that. When I first came into tech, I learned about conferences, really early tech conferences. People were flying all over the world for conferences, often for free. And I was like, how does that work? I was just jealous for year one, year two, like, how does that work? How do they get picked? And this season right now, it's like it's like a rainy season for me. This conference, thanks to you, I've been invited to, and everything's taken care of. And Pluralsight conference in New Orleans a couple of weeks ago, and the Render conference in the next week, all paid for and covered, but I didn't actually directly try to do any of those things. Just continue to show up consistently, make sure my voice is authentic, giving accurate information. If it's not, hey, retract it, just be myself, continue to do the work, and things just happen. The luck, it just happens, so.
Yeah.
But I still don't feel worthy.
Please feel free.
I just wanted to say something off of that too, because it's so interesting. So they gave us these badges that say expert on them. And we were all like, oh look, we're experts, but we don't know on what yet. So I think this idea of like imposter syndrome is something that we all experience and work through, but I guess it's completely normal, and acknowledging that is really, really important.
I want to hear a little bit from the audience. Do you all agree imposter syndrome is a thing? Like, do you also feel like we don't really talk about it with our coworkers? You know what I mean? Like, I just feel like I really should not work here. You know what I mean? No one would ever say that to their coworker. So what happens is you go home, you feel bad, you tell your partner that everything sucks at work, and then you try to do it the next day and hope that no one figures out that you have no idea. But I think that the people who do the best are the ones that acknowledge that and try to work hard. And not, like, I'm not gonna hide it. Like, there are times where I have no idea what I'm doing, and then there are times, like we just saw today, where I'm jumping out of an airplane. Why am I jumping out of an airplane? And then you land, and you're like, let's do that again. That was amazing. Jared, do you feel like that at all?
Every day, every day.
Every day. Any questions or comments from our friend? Oh, you want to add something? Please, you can go ahead while we think about questions. We'll go over here, but let's go ahead and Eden first.
I know a lot of us as content creators do this, but I think going live and doing things like Scott Hanselman, his session earlier today, he was like setting up a developer environment from scratch. And doing that live and doing what you're supposed to be an expert in what you're supposed to be an expert at, and making mistakes and being open about that, and being vulnerable as somebody that people look up to be able to make mistakes and show people how you can come back from that and still be confident is really important. So I feel like Scott Hanselman, he's definitely a role model, because it's not like he knows everything. I think he has a t-shirt that's like world's okayest programmer. So I still look up to him. I think it's more admirable to be able to say I'm not perfect than to be able to be seen as perfect, because once you do that, you're opening the door for more people to be able to embrace their averageness, their okayness.
I appreciate that. You had a question over here, and we'll go over there.
Yeah. Should I stand or just?
Whatever makes you comfortable.
I appreciate you guys all giving your time. It's been a really great panel. And I just had a question about like collaboration between different creators. And for someone that's like up and coming or just has a smaller audience, what for you as someone with a pretty large or sizable audience already, what makes you want to collaborate with someone with a more niche or smaller audience? Does that make sense?
That's a great question.
I can answer. Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a combination of things. If you're like located near me, that's more, feasible. Otherwise, yeah, I generally like look at the person's content, see what they're about, and if it fits, and we can like do something, easily together. Because doing collaboration remote is a little more difficult when it comes to content creation, like editing and stuff like that. So, but yeah.
Anyone have a disagreement? You go.
I'm not disagreeing.
No?
So one thing with me, since the EE world is like a little bit so small, especially on technology, I always see like software and everything, but I rarely see anybody in hardware. So when I see someone else who's like also a fellow creator, I want to lift them up because the more people we can reach, even though we have like, different audiences, the better it is because then we bring in more people. So I feel like as long as people can learn from each other or like, be a good person, be, like what she said so fluidly is the best thing that I would look for like, collaborating with people.
I love that. Sophie, and then we'll have a question here.
I'll also say that connections are so important. And so when somebody reaches out and they're more interested in networking or having a connection with you as a person, and then allowing that relationship to then naturally turn into a collaboration opportunity is better. Because when someone reaches out to you and they're like, hey, can we collab? And like they don't even follow you, it's a little alarming, right? Yeah. So, and so I think like that human aspect, and then also realizing that people, like we're social, like social media was made to be social, and I feel like so a lot of the time bigger creators think that they're like on this huge pedestal, and it's like you're not, you know what I mean? Like we're literally the same, like we do the same thing, we live the same experience. So just recognizing the human aspect, and then also just recognizing that you should be seeking out some kind of a relationship if you're interested, genuinely interested, and then allowing that to kind of naturally flow into a collaboration.
First of all, I come from overcame a 20-year employment gap as a military spouse to get back in tech after a long time away. So congratulations for making it. I love pivoters. One of the things I'm finding as I create on social media is this tension between branding and just posting what you want to post because it's fun. Can you speak to that? Because it's, I have a lot of things I'm interested in, from advocacy to tech to Disney, name it. I just want to post about it. So how do you keep your brand going when everything looks fun?
Let's hear from Rachel.
I just recently did a stint of posting on TikTok for 100 days, and I did it because I wanted to prove to myself that I could. I started this year and I wanted to be like a lot more consistent, and when I started, I was like, oh, this is great, 100 straight days of tech content, and after day like 13 or 14, I was like, okay, what else can we talk about? Something that I've really struggled with is none of us are like people who only do tech. Just like you, I love Disney, I love video games, I love so many different things. And in terms of branding, me as a personal brand in my channel should identify with who I am as a person. And if I'm only showing up as tech, I am not authentically being myself, because that's not the only person that I am. So something that I found out is I was actually very afraid to post things that were outside of the tech realm. But as I posted about Disney, or as I posted about liking video games and like what's recent, I found an additional community of people who were also able to relate to those things. And I also found that there were a lot of people who stuck around, even if they weren't interested in tech, just because we had that additional channel that was there as well. I was personally very afraid of alienating different groups of people, and that's not the right mindset, because I just said that we're not people who only have one like thing that we like to do. And the way that I was thinking about it was, oh, the people in tech won't like me if I talk about Disney, and they won't like me if I talk about video games, and putting people in different pots. And I think that the people who like you and like your content will stick around no matter whatever you talk about.
I love that. Lawrence.
I was gonna say, once you leave the confines of like corporate rules of social media posting, there are no hard and fast rules. You can do whatever the heck you want. I think the perfect formula has yet to be found. But what you will find is if you become known for a brand, you have a core audience of people who like you, they will like everything about you and just be interested in, you know, what's your cat's name, what's your favorite color, and where do you shop. But you do need that core brand first, typically. So my stuff is all over the place. It's all over the place. It's family, it's cooking, it's tech, it's I'm sleepy, whatever I want to put. But people know me because he's the guy that transitioned from restaurant career into tech. He did it well, he helps people, and he has a focus on low cost and free resources. That's a real big deal to me.
Any comments over here before we have Russ ask the question? Jared?
Yeah, I would say it definitely depends what your goals are. If you want to gain a huge following, I'm not gonna lie, like you have to have some concentration in a niche. That's just how the algorithm works, for TikTok at least, right? Or even YouTube. But what I do as a hack to do like other content, all my titles are when a programmer does blank. Yeah, so that's generally how I will generalize my videos. Yeah.
Thanks. First, I just want to say this has been a really heartwarming session. How about a round of applause for these folks here? Yeah, my name is Russ Casino. I've been a developer advocate now for about 25 years, quarter of a century. Boy, long time. Anyway, I help developers, right, learn and get educated and make their careers better. And I just find it very gratifying, you know, to help people. I was just wondering if any of you have actually experienced that and how good it feels.
Ooh, that's a great question. You don't have a particular personal story, something that stands out?
So I would definitely say that going into tech as an influencer has been super gratifying, especially when it comes to diversity in technology. Because when I started doing these videos, my channel was pretty much just a channel about whatever I wanted. Like kind of going into the last question, I did whatever because I started my channel in 6th grade, and now I'm a junior, and my interests have definitely changed in 6th grade. I started doing books, and then coding, as that became one of my interests. I just posted a video showing off one of my projects, then I did how I created it, and I started to get messages from kids all over the world, in Egypt, in Morocco, and all these different places, saying, I haven't seen any kid-friendly coding tutorials, this is so amazing. And you know, kids, they're a little wild, and the I don't know how to put it, but the enthusiasm with which they commented, they were like, oh my gosh, I'm obsessed with you. They would actually say that. And seeing that, I was like, oh wow, I really can be a role model. And that is super satisfying. I would literally go through my comments and cry, seeing all the people that were like, I never would have gotten into coding if it weren't for your videos. And that made me want to continue, and I just kept going. They would be harassing me, come and saying, can you make a video game out of this, or a game out of this? I would actually take requests, and seeing them react to my things and actually, you know, engaging with them, because at the end of the day, it's really the kids that matter. It's my audience that matters, because my goal is to get them inspired and show them that they can be in technology. So taking those requests, you know, being on the same level with them, talking them through their problems, and making games that they want to see, that was super satisfying, and seeing their reactions. So that definitely makes it worth it to stay engaged with your audience and, you know, get them what they want.
So Tala?
Yeah, so I think definitely like agree and resonate with a lot of what Eden said. Like I've had similar experiences of like, you know, like young girls messaging me and saying that they tried something that I did. So for example, I made this video about how anyone, like literally anyone, and I made it very simple. I said in under a minute, I'm gonna show you how you can use, or how you can have a website online that you can share the link with your friends. And I just used Netlify and VS Code, and literally showed them like, okay, you're gonna go to this website, install VS Code, open VS Code, like write these lines, whatever, in under a minute. And then like people were commenting like, oh, like I am a waitress and I just did this, or something like that, right? So if I can be that step of like, you know, just like encouraging someone to maybe think like, oh, like tech is actually not hard, or not hard, but like tech is accessible, because I think we're in like this really cool like time in life where tech is just like exponentially like getting easier, like the barrier to entry for people. And sometimes if you're not in the tech industry, you don't know that. Like there are still misconceptions that like programming is harder. It's like really hard to get into. So I think, yeah, that's very gratifying. And then I think just another aspect of it is it's gratifying, like, even in like the opportunities that you get. So for example, like getting invited to come here. I also got invited to another tech conference that I was at last week. So, you know, we talked about that imposter syndrome, and I think like just posting and like getting these opportunities, or like when companies are like, I want you to promote my product or something like that, it's just like kind of helps you feel, you know, like, I don't know, helps you feel less imposter syndrome, if that makes sense.
Fantastic. We are out of time, but I want to encourage you, if you've got your phones out, to take shots of each of our friends here. We've got Sophie, codebysophie.dev. We've got Lemonerdy, where you can find Eden online. We've got Tala, you can find her on TikTok and on her website, all over. Bites of Brie. Val Java on TikTok. Lawrence Lockhart, Me So Dope, very own Jerry Chen, and Inga Woods-Waight. Very, very cool. We're glad that you're here. We hope you have a lot of fun. If you see the creators out as you're walking around, say hi. I'm sure they can probably answer questions. But unfortunately, we have to give this room up for the next panel. Let's give a big round to our friends.
Can we all do a video real quick?
A video? We're doing TikTok?
A TikTok, real quick.
All right, tell us how we're doing, sir.
Okay. How about we all just start like going, woo?
Yeah, there's no one to go.
All right. 3, 2, 1.
Yeah.
Love that. Thank you.